Schwartzkopf, sales agronomist with Ag Partners at the Albert City location. Once again, welcome to Walking the Fields with Doug. Today we're going to take a look at some of the conditions we're currently facing here in north central, northwestern Iowa in our fields, take into consideration some of the things we need to be thinking about before we spray fields with herbicides, and what temperatures we really need to be aware of for herbicide performance on control of our weeds, and also making sure that we don't damage the young growing crop. One of the things I want you to make sure is that when we're spraying, we're at least temperatures of 54 degrees to 55 degrees when we're spraying, and preferably we want to be looking at, especially for crop damage in a young crop, corn plants like we're seeing here in this field, that we have nighttime temperatures. We want them to be staying in the 50s, and we'd like to see those daytime temperatures getting up to 65. And what we're looking there is we want to make sure that the corn plant has the ability to metabolize the herbicides that are being sprayed on it. Whenever we spray a corn plant or even a soybean plant, it takes energy for them to metabolize those herbicides that are being used upon them. So therefore we want to make sure that there's enough sunlight and growing conditions for the plants to handle those herbicides that we're using today. What I wanted to do here was take a look at some of the different sizes of weeds in the same field, and it's not unusual to see that as we look at a giant ragweed here that is of 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 set of leaves in it in the same field where we just had newly emerging velvet leaves that are really starting to get their first true leaves. And as we look around, we see young corn plants, we see mare's tail and so on. So what I want you to do is, as you're looking at the field, make your evaluations of what's there. Make sure that you put enough herbicide out to control a weed of this size, even though you have these other small ones in here. What we happen to see, giant ragweeds, this is one of the prime examples, is quite often guys won't put on enough rate or enough surfactant or have a properly balanced load in their field, that they'll kill off this plant back to really where you have a plant of this height, and we'll see auxiliary growth points come out in this field in this plant, and it will be almost impossible to control with a second application of Roundup or whatever. So we need to do it right the first time, making sure we've chosen the right temperature, the right growing conditions, and the right rates to control the weeds in the field. What we're really discussing here today is use of the contact style herbicides, the glyphosates that many of us will be using in the fields here as burn downs and weed controls and so on. Those products need to be having plants to be actively growing, really, for them to work well in proper temperatures and so on. You know, the Liberty type products, they have another separate set of growing conditions. Always contact or read and use your label as your guidelines for control and use of herbicides in a proper manner. As we look at these fields, one of the things we talk about is weed height and so on, and maturity levels of plants. And we'll ask that the camera kind of take a quick look around the field. You can see we have plants here of small sizes and so on, and different species are starting to emerge. And one of the things that we talk about here, and as I hold a couple lamb's quarter plants here, is that if you look at them side by side, you think they're maybe a different maturity level. As we count the number of leaves there that are present, you know, we're probably looking at a 10 leaf or set of leaves here on this lamb's quarter. This one's basically the same thing, but what we see here is we had a plant that was mechanically damaged at planting and really is split off and has multiple growing points on it. Before you make a decision, or your crops agronomist that you work with makes a decision about the rates to use, that you truly evaluate the maturity based on the number of leaves of the plant. And you have to make sure that those are identified. Always read and follow label directions when using the herbicides. It'll keep us all out of trouble. Using cut rates and trying to do lower rates really will get us into trouble as far as getting good performance and being able to control the weeds throughout the year. I caution everyone to make sure that they do take a look at their fields now, start evaluating their stands and evaluating their herbicide performance, and above all, let's be safe out there.